Hello. Tonight is chat number 14 in What Does Nature Mean to You live chat series. Earlier today, had the pleasure of a daytime chat with the absolutely wonderful David Willis, who is a bushcraft teacher and instructor. And he came on live this afternoon from the woods, from his wild camp, and showed us all around the wild camp, as well as telling us a bit more about what he does and why he does it. So really encourage you to go and hop back on my posts or IGTV channel and find my chat with him. He had so many stories to share and it just made me smile and had some lovely feedback from that too. It's just been another brilliant week full of wonderful, wonderful people. Tonight I've got Sonia joining me from Adore Your Outdoors. She's a forest bathing guide. I'm really excited to have another forest bathing guide come and join me. So I'm just going to get Sonia on here. I do the little waiting around for it all to connect up. Here she comes. Hello! Oh, can you hear me all right? Hello!
Yeah, I can now. There was a bit of a delay, but can you hear me okay?
Perfect now, yes.
Great.
Hi!
Hi.
Oh, it's so nice to meet you. I mean, we've been following each other
Yeah.
and kind of commenting here and there, but it's so nice to connect.
Yeah, and the great thing about what we do is that there's no kind of competitiveness or anything, is there? It's all about trying to get as many people to have that nature connection that we've got. So it's it's great to connect properly in real life.
Definitely. Yeah, there's another forest bathing guide I've connected with, Jimmy out in Wales, of Mindful Walks. Okay. And he said something beautiful that I won't quote well at all, but something about, your success is my success. But it's not even about our success, it's about people connecting to nature and I guess their success really, and spreading that word, isn't it?
Yeah, there's nothing better than a good comment or so, in the middle of a session or at the end of a session where someone says, oh my God, I get it. I've never felt this before. And you're like, hallelujah.
That's it. And just inviting more people to do that. So before we go any further, Sonia, I shall ask you to introduce yourself properly. Who are you? What do you do? And where do you do it?
Thank you. So I'm Sonia Dibin and I run Adore Your Outdoors. I'm based in Winchester. I live here with my 4 3/4 year old son. Here, very important that I mention the 3/4. So 4 3/4 year old son, and I'm very pleased to say he loves the outdoors just as much as I do. My greatest achievement yet, I still think. And yeah, so my background was IT, believe it or not. So although I always felt most at home in nature, I chased the money a little bit when I came out of university, and I was all geared up for corporate. And I did corporate for a number of years, but I knew it wouldn't be what I wanted forever. And so I qualified as a therapeutic counsellor, like a traditional talking counsellor at night school, as my mum used to say. And I did that over a period of years, and I knew I was going to use that later, but I didn't know when or how or whatever. But that was kind of like, right, I've got that in the bank. And that was really interesting because it was completely the antidote to my kind of dry IT life, was learning all about the human psyche and our emotions and why we are who we are and things like that. So I loved all of that. And then when I fell pregnant with Leo, I knew the greatest gift I could ever give him was the connection to the outdoors and the love for our great British weather in all seasons, because I come from a family of people who want sunshine, and if it's not sunny then they're unhappy, and I didn't want that. I've grown up with that for some time. I was like that myself, and it's like, given the climate that we're in, I don't want to spend a lot of my time feeling miserable. It's hard, I know now, especially the days get darker, you know, it's colder, it's rainy. I get it, don't get me wrong, but I don't want that every day for my son. And so I was quite determined that we were going to get him into nature from a very early age, and that's what I did. And as fate would have it, I was then made redundant a few years, 2 or 3 years after that. And so I pulled on my big girl pants and followed my dream of spending more time in nature, but helping people and being more creative, and decided to set up Adore Your Outdoors.
Oh, congratulations for that journey.
Thank you. Yeah, the year before a global pandemic. Yeah, no.
Well, and you said you're based in Wiltshire, so people
Winchester.
know. Winchester.
Yes.
Okay,
all the W's.
Clearly, geography not my strong point. So let me take us to the first question I've been asking everyone then. What is your earliest memory of connecting to nature in some way?
Oh gosh, right. So my very first memory of any substance is when I went on holiday to Wootton under Edge, right, which is in Gloucestershire. And we used to go as a family every summer. And they had it was a friend of my dad's, and they had this most amazing plot of land. There was a swimming pool, there were 2 lakes, there was a stream running through it, and huge gardens, right? And they had the posh manor house, and we lived in the little outhouse, you know, that's where we went for our holiday. And I'm sure my parents had a whale of a time doing whatever they were doing up in the main house of an evening, but during the day, while we were awake, you know, I was pretty much allowed to run free in this enormous natural space that was safe, because that's the thing, it was safe. And I can remember just losing the entire day. You know, you only went home when you were starving, and just exploring every aspect of nature that I could find there. And there were tadpoles in the swimming pool, which I can very clearly remember. The stream, watching the stream, it was down a sort of a slight hill, you know, so there was some speed, so you could hear the sounds, the water was trickling. It was just it was a sense of freedom that I'd never had, and that I could really connect with. And I remember every time we left that place, so I imagine it was a week's holiday, you know, in the summer holidays. And every time I left, I pretty much had to be, you know, physically put into the car and strapped in so that I couldn't get out. And I was screaming. I was so sad, because that meant the end of my freedom. And freedom is a thing that it's a constant in my life. I'm constantly striving for freedom and space and all of that, and that's what I had there. And that for me is my first memory of really connecting to nature. I associate it with freedom and acceptance, a sense of belonging.
It's really starting to come through as a common theme in some of these chats. That importance as a child connecting, and a child connecting with freedom. And earlier you talked about being quite determined to install that for your child. How do you do that now? You know, because again, another common theme is there was perhaps more freedom, or perhaps more perceived freedom back then than there is now. And maybe that's access or location as well. So what have you done to instill that connection? And
so I think you're right, it's perceived, there's a perception, and so I volunteer, or did, in the good old days, with the Wildlife Trust down here in Hampshire, and I helped to run wildlife tots, which was one of my passions. And you know, for the little preschoolers, you take them and you do all of these fun activities with them, right? So Leo did that forever. That's my son Leo. He did that from when he was really little, and just being let loose in my garden. So my garden is by no means enormous, right? But it has a veg patch. It has a little wildlife pond that we put in at the beginning of lockdown by some stroke of genius. I just managed to sort it all out in February, so we were ready to go. But what he was allowed to do was just to be free, but it's within the confines of a safe garden, you know, so you can't go wandering off anywhere. But he will come in now he has his own little section of the veg beds, and he will come in with handfuls of anything that creeps or crawls of any kind, you know, and he's, you know, utter delight with what he's discovered, you know, bringing them right up to me in the kitchen, you know. Sometimes I think, oh, this has gone a step too far, but it's that, and it's allowing the time. So I think one of the problems we've got at the moment is everything is in a rush, you know. With forest bathing, you don't have a destination in sight, and that's one of the things that many people find difficult when they first start to do it, because we're so used to rush, and we have to have a purpose and tick something off a list. And so one of the things I always did with Leo was to allow him the time to explore at his own pace, which is incredibly frustrating for an adult because you want to hurry them up. And so I had to fight it. But, you know, and for example, our walk to school now should be 15 minutes or 12 really, but it's usually 30, because we have to stop. We have to stop and look at all of the leaves. We have to pick up all of the worms on the way. We have to look at the wood lice, the bugs. We have to go, honestly, I mean, people must think we're crazy, you know, going into bushes and having a look because he thought he saw something just through there. And it's about allowing the time for all of those explorations to happen, even though you have unfortunately got to be restricted to this rigid schedule of a school day. I still think, and I will always try to allow as much freedom and nature around that as I can.
And that's reminding me, actually, the conversation I had last week with very inspiring teenager Indy Green, a young conservationist campaigner. And he has grown up with nature on his doorstep, so having that freedom. But it does seem that often, even if that's nurtured as a young child, it can get lost in the teenage years, whether it's cool or not, but equally time and school demands, work. And it struck me, because he is homeschooled, he has more luxury of time in a way. And again, I won't quote him quite accurately, but it does seem to be that freedom of time. And carrying that through as a teenager, and then, as you say, as an adult, we're busy, and suddenly giving ourselves permission to have that time and spend that time with no goal, no aim, no objective, really.
It's very hard, and I think it is to do with that, and it's a mindset, isn't it? So are you able to allow yourself that? One of the things that I've sort of slightly adapted with the forest bathing is running a family offering, and it's for parent and child over 10, because, you know, because of the meditations and the stillness and the quietness and all of that, they have to be fairly grown up, you know, so the little tots it wouldn't work with, right? But that is, and exactly for that reason, because that at around that age, that's when the kids are overwhelmed with schoolwork, discovering boys, girls, whatever it might be, you know, and all of that. It's not cool. I don't want to be with my parent, whatever. And I've had some lovely experiences with some of the duos on my sessions. It works really well.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. Because that's my sort of, as I've got through this and these chats, that's probably my biggest question is, how do we solve, fix, connect, help, guide that bit in between that can be I guess the bit where we can lose people or lose ourselves. And many of the adults I've spoken to, that's where they identify it. A lot of people can answer that first question, what was your earliest memory of childhood, and then often have then veered off away from it, sometimes by default of having to go to a busy city or work in a busy city and jobs. And how do we kind of nurture that connection? So I guess then, if I move into my second question of what does nature mean to you, And
Yeah.
has that changed this year at all?
Mm. Mm. I don't think it's changed for me this year, other than it feels a little as though the relationship that I had with nature is more public now. I think because other people have started, you know, I do get a sense that more people are feeling a compassion for nature. I do get that sense now. Beyond, I mean, beyond just walking the dog. I think that's happening. Maybe it's the circles I move in, I don't know. But I wouldn't say there's been any great change for me this year. What does it mean for me? It means it means kindness, compassion and acceptance, and sorry, it's going to be a whole load of words now. Exploration, fragility, flexibility, yeah, no judgment, and this thing that's constantly there that we aren't, that we're not respectful enough of. We've kind of taken it for granted, but I think she's fighting back, our Mother Nature. I do get this sense of, yeah, actually the tides are turning now and things are going to be changing. There's a reflection of self, I think, in nature. There's this constant, everything's changing all of the time, and you can see, you know, one of the invitations, I don't know whether you do it, is mirror of my life. Do you know something? You may call it a slightly different
Yeah,
name.
tell us more.
So what it is, you wander around at a very slow pace. No real need to get anywhere, so you're just wandering, using your body sense, heart sense, whatever. And when you notice something in nature, whatever that is, you stop and you repeat the phrase in your mind, or you can say it out loud for potency. Whatever it is you've noticed of my life. So for me, the first time I did this, when I was on my training course, I was in the Forest of Dean, right? So what a great place to go training. And it was the knobbly, gnarly branches of my life. And the idea is, when you when you say the phrases, you connect with the emotions and sensations within your body rather than the phrase, which if you try to analyze it, you know, you might kind of, I don't know, you could go off down a rabbit hole. It's not about that. It's about feeling the senses of emotions, because a lot of the time on the training, as you all know, you're trying to reconnect with emotions and things that we've been told to suppress most of our lives. You know, keep that covered, don't bother to show that, think with your brain, you know. And it's like, no, actually we need to get back in touch with who we really are and our emotions. So this whole, the knobbly, gnarly branches of my life, right? And still now, it was like someone had punched me in the stomach, and I sat there for the entire duration of this particular invitation, just looking at these knobbly, gnarly branches and reflecting on how that was. And that's why it's the mirrors of my life, because nature reflects at you, you know, and can show you wisdom and things even when you're least expecting it. And to sit and to just be with that experience for the duration of 20 minutes or so was so cathartic and incredibly emotional. And I still can get in touch with that right now. So it's a very hard question to answer, but there's just so much to that. And I think, just to finish the point, we are working together with nature. We are nature. We've sort of seemed to have forgotten that. It sounds funny now when I say that, because I think surely that's not the case, but I know it is, you know, even though it's so alien for me now. Of course we are part of nature. We're not separate to it, and we just need to get ourselves back into sync with the way that we really should be, which is just a little bit more kind and caring
Mm.
to each other, actually,
Yes.
as well.
Yeah, it's promoting that compassion by that connection, and almost when you connect with nature, with our nature, and then with others, you kind of can't stop the compassion that just
Exactly.
happens.
And that's the best thing. And that's what I say to people. I'm going to help you develop your connection to nature. And once you start feeling that compassion, you can't stop it. You're never going to go back to the person that you were before. And people kind of look at me, you know, I think half are thinking, what? And the other half are thinking, oh, this sounds intriguing, you know. But that's it. You're never going to be the same person. It is transformative. Once you start that connection and that feeling inside of compassion, it grows.
And I think there's something about, as you say, nature reflects back to us, and allows or creates space for us to hear our own inner wisdom as well. And it can be quite rare for that, I think. And
Oh God, yeah.
I think, again, having that inner wisdom, just then, or listening, we all have it, but listening to it perhaps then creates that greater self connection, again, self compassion as well. Because when we start listening to our own inner voice and start taking care of that, or following that, that's a much deeper bond with ourselves. And I wonder, again, you know, now, as you say, we can analyze it, we can put words on it, we can, you know, use psychological terms on it, but perhaps whether a lot of that was just innate feelings that we originally had when we were living connected as part of nature, and now we almost have to go the long way around to come back to it.
Yeah, it's exactly it. A couple of people on my sessions have had quite profound experiences, you know, as you go and you're deeper down and you get really into that kind of healing area, and they talk of, you know, just this sudden epiphany. It's like, oh, of course that's what I need to do, you know, this thing's been troubling me, I've not been able to sort through this or whatever. And just giving ourselves that little space and the clarity of mind, and suddenly it's completely obvious. And they've been pondering on this situation, you know, for a long time. So I think, it's returning to those ancestral ways, giving ourselves some space, slowing down, not rushing, not having a destination all the time, and allowing that time to just be. We're human beings, not human doings.
Yes. Yeah, and it very much reminds you talked about training to be a counsellor. And when I had embarked on my beginning training, I sort of did my basic trainings of counselling. And I remember sort of talking about different schools and approaches, and the person-centered approach that ultimately is saying, we know what's best for us. We just need to work with ourselves and perhaps ask the right questions to discover that. And again, to find that actually out in nature, you can kind of almost skip a lot of sessions probably to kind of get to that, to create that space and hearing that.
Which is why I say I am passionate. I'm still passionate about talking therapy. I think it's really great, but I do think combined with nature, it's a way speedier process. And there is definitely, you know, you can spend months, years in therapy just to get some awareness. When you go into nature, you're going to get the awareness much quicker and potentially even work through to a resolution, is what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I suppose that would lead beautifully to the third and final question of what would your advice be for others?
Okay, so start small. That's my first thing. So particularly at this time of year, people start struggling. So I was just having a phone call before this with my very oldest friend, actually, and you know, she's having a tough time with the lack of light and the rain and the grey and all the rest of it. And I suppose a 3-hour forest bathing session can seem just too much, right? So, and I get that. So what I would say is start small. So I did a talk this morning in a networking session, and I just guided a 5-minute nature connection exercise using an object from the garden that they had connected with in some way and that they brought in, you know, back to the Zoom call. And honestly, the feedback was incredible. Just 5 minutes of mindful sensory connection with, we had twigs, leaves, a stone, you know, whatever it might have been. And everyone was just honestly quite overwhelmed with how much they got from that just 5 minutes. So I would say if you can do nothing more, just allow yourself 5 or 10 minutes and do it as a daily thing. So it's the habit forming, the thing we know, you've got to do it for 28 days or whatever it is to form the habit. I would say don't be put off by winter. So basically, some of my best and most favourite items of clothing are my winter's clothes, right? They cover up all sorts of things, and you can lay down on the floor, and there's nothing quite as therapeutic as laying on the floor in the woods and fully waterproofed up, you know. So yeah, really big snuggly coat, nice hood up, whatever, completely out like a starfish, and look up at the sky. We don't look up enough. It's such a simple thing to do. Look up, look at the canopy, look at the fractals, the branches of the trees, look at the clouds, watch the gentle sway. Notice that this tree's moving at this pace, the one next to it's at a different pace. How's that happening? Just go with it. So spend a few minutes looking up, and in good clothing is what they are my top tips that are easy, and you can build upon those and hopefully get yourself out forest bathing in the spring if it feels like it's too much to do in the winter.
Fantastic advice. And you have just created a set of forest bathing cards as well, haven't you? As kind of prompts for people.
Yeah, so with the lockdown one, I just had to close the business effectively because I had Leo at home and he needed me full time, and I was like, you know, I'm never going to get this time with him again before he starts school, so make the most of it. So kind of parked the business. Had a fairly good summer, and then with lockdown 2, I thought, right, this is just getting ridiculous. I'm going to have to do something. 2 things I didn't plan on doing, but it's good to adapt. So I've produced the most amazing set of mindfulness Shinrin Yoku cards, and there's 10 cards in there, and they guide you through 10 different mindfulness experiences. So they are lovely, and you can get them on my website, adoreyouraoutdoors.
I've just ordered mine today.
Oh, well done. Thank you. And I also have set up virtual forest bathing on Zoom. So I know it goes against the grain, right? But the way I figured it, 90 minutes of a nature connection experience with a small group of like-minded people is better than no minutes of that, right? And I had a friend come who is a regular on my in-person sessions, so I got her to come as well. And she actually said, in some ways, it was more enjoyable than the full 3-hour experience because she didn't have to worry about getting somewhere. She didn't know where she was going, or was she going to be late. She could go to somewhere that was very local, and what you do is you still mute the microphone and turn off the video during the actual invitation pieces. So you're only on camera while you're in your sharing circle, you know, and it works surprisingly well. So if either of those sound interesting, I've got a virtual session on Monday, lunchtime, 12 until 1:30. And yeah, I mean, who knows what we're going to be doing in December, January, if we're going to actually be doing any sessions. I don't know.
I love that you've stepped into that. I know we had a brief conversation before because there's been some wonderful people doing that all around the world, forest bathing. And I think both you and I had been a bit unsure about doing that. And I love that you're doing that now. I still haven't quite braved it, but I'd love to come and attend. I can't do Monday's one, but I will come and attend one of yours.
Yeah. And I mean, well, and I mean, the one I did first of all was back in the summer, and it was with a lady in Canada, and it was amazing. And so there was Canadians, Americans, Irish. It was just such a different experience, but also a very rewarding one.
Fantastic. So let people know again where they can follow you. Obviously I'll tag you in this video as well, but I know you said your website too.
Yes, so it's adoreyouraoutdoors.co.uk, and all of my handles are Adore Your Outdoors because I'm lucky no one else had nabbed them before me.
Oh, thank you, Sonia. Thank you so much. It's so lovely to connect.
Thank you, Ruth. Yeah, really lovely to talk to you.
Thank you. Hopefully meet you in person soon.
Yes. And enjoy the cards. I'm going to get them sent out to you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Sonia.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, lovely. When I get those forest bathing cards, I'll show you guys as well. But do check out her website and what she's doing. So thank you everyone for watching. I am back not tomorrow night, not Saturday night, because I'm going to Secret Art Club. So Sunday night, I'm back at 8:30 p.m. with the Digital Detox Coach. So that should be lovely. He is an expert in technology. I think he worked in technology before and is now kind of encouraging everyone to step away from technology or at least use it wisely.